The mysterious sniper moved like a shadow across the desert landscape, invisible to the panicked militants below. Each shot was calculated, precise, and deadly. Within 15 minutes, she had eliminated 12 of the 25 enemies, reducing their overwhelming advantage to something the trapped SEALs might actually survive. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison watched in amazement as the militants scrambled for cover, their confident assault now turned into desperate defensive positions. The unknown sniper was methodically picking them off from multiple locations, making it impossible for them to determine where the shots originated. "How is one person moving so fast?" Tom Chun whispered, pressing a field bandage to his wounded forehead. "Those shots are coming from completely different angles." The sniper's voice crackled through their radio again. "Bravo, team. I need you to create a distraction in 60 seconds. Draw their attention to the north side of your building." Jake hesitated. "Unknown sniper, what's your plan? We need to know who you are and what unit you're with." "I'm with the unit that's keeping you alive, Sergeant. Trust me or die. Your choice." The bluntness of her response struck Jake. This wasn't military protocol, but then again, nothing about this situation followed any protocol he knew. "What kind of distraction?" "Anything that makes noise and draws fire. I need them looking away from the water tower." Jake scanned the area and spotted the old water tower on the village's eastern edge. It was at least 800 meters away, an incredible distance for accurate sniper fire, especially in desert heat that created shifting air currents. Whoever this woman was, she was operating at a level of skill that few people in the world possessed. "Danny, Rick, you heard her," Jake ordered. "Start shooting toward their north positions. Make it loud." The two SEALs opened fire, their weapons chattering as they aimed toward the militants' northern flank. Immediately, return fire erupted from that direction, muzzle flashes revealing enemy positions as they focused on the perceived threat. The sniper's rifle cracked again, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. 3 more militants dropped, each shot so perfectly timed that their companions didn't even realize they were dead until they stopped responding to orders. "Impressive," Tom muttered. "Whoever she is, she's cutting through them like they're paper targets." But the militants were adapting. Their leader, the scarred man Jake had noticed earlier, was repositioning his remaining forces. Instead of advancing on the SEALs' building, he was pulling them back, using the village's scattered buildings for cover while trying to locate the sniper. "They're getting smart," the woman's voice warned through the radio. "I've got 13 down, 12 remaining. But they're going to try something different now." She was right. The militants were splitting into 3 groups, moving in coordinated patterns that would make it harder for a single sniper to track all of them simultaneously. Their leader had realized that rushing the trapped SEALs was suicide as long as the mysterious shooter remained active. "Bravo, team. You need to move," she continued. "They're going to try to flush me out by forcing me to choose between protecting you and staying hidden. Get ready to relocate." "Negative," Jake responded immediately. "We have no cover between here and any other position. Moving means certain death. Not if you trust me." There was something in her voice, a confidence that went beyond mere training. Jake had worked with the best snipers in the military, and this woman sounded different. She spoke like someone who had never missed a shot that mattered, never failed a mission that counted. "Who are you?" he asked again. "Someone who owes you a favor, though you don't remember it." Before Jake could ask what she meant, explosions rocked the village. The militants were using grenades to destroy potential sniper positions, systematically eliminating anywhere the mystery woman might be hiding. The strategy was crude, but effective. If they couldn't find her, they would destroy every possible hiding spot. "They're demolishing the whole village," Rick observed, watching clouds of dust and debris rise from various buildings. The sniper's rifle spoke again, but this time the shot came from a completely different direction. How was she moving so fast? The militants heard it too, and their confusion was evident in their scattered response. They were shooting at shadows, wasting ammunition on empty buildings while their real enemy remained invisible. "Bravo, team. Listen carefully," the woman's voice commanded. In 30 seconds, there's going to be a massive explosion on the village's west side. When you hear it, run north toward the old mosque. Don't stop, don't look back, and don't question what you see. What explosion? Jake demanded. We don't have any explosives. I do. The radio went dead. Jake exchanged glances with his team. They were being asked to trust someone they couldn't see, couldn't identify, and couldn't contact through normal military channels. But with 11 enemy fighters still hunting them and no other options available, trust was their only remaining weapon. Get ready to move, Jake ordered his team. Whatever happens, we stick together. The explosion, when it came, was enormous. A massive fireball erupted from the village's western edge, sending a column of black smoke hundreds of feet into the air. The blast was so powerful that it shattered windows in buildings half a mile away and sent shockwaves through the ground that Jake felt in his chest. Now, Jake shouted. The four SEALs sprinted from their crumbling shelter, running north toward the mosque as instructed. Behind them, they could hear the militants shouting in confusion, their attention completely focused on the massive fire consuming the western buildings. As they ran, Jake caught glimpses of the snipers' work. Bodies lay scattered throughout the village, not randomly, but positioned in ways that told a story. Each fallen militant had been taken down while in a specific position, creating gaps in their defensive line that allowed the SEALs to pass through safely. The mosque appeared ahead, its damaged minaret reaching toward the desert sky. As they approached, Jake noticed movement on the rooftop, a figure in desert camouflage, barely visible against the stone and mortar background. Up here, the woman's voice called softly. They climbed a damaged staircase to reach the roof, where they finally saw their mysterious savior. She was smaller than Jake had expected, maybe 5'6", with dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Her face was painted with desert camouflage, making her features difficult to distinguish, but her eyes were unmistakable. They held a depth of experience that spoke of countless missions, endless hours of training, and a level of focus that few people ever achieved. Her rifle was a custom-built weapon that Jake didn't recognize, longer than standard sniper rifles, with modifications that suggested serious long-range capability. Her gear was minimal but perfectly organized, every piece of equipment positioned for maximum efficiency. You're not military, Tom observed, noting the lack of unit insignia or standard military gear. She smiled slightly, an expression that didn't reach those intense eyes. Not anymore. Then who are you? Jake pressed. And what did you mean about owing us a favor? Before she could answer, her radio crackled with urgent chatter in Arabic. Her expression hardened as she listened. We have a problem, she said grimly. Those weren't all the militants. There's another group, 15 more fighters, heading this way. They heard the explosion, and they're coming to investigate. Jake's heart sank. They had survived one impossible situation only to face another. His team was exhausted, low on ammunition, and now they had to deal with 15 fresh enemies. How long do we have? He asked. The woman was already moving, checking her weapon and scanning the horizon through her scope. 20 minutes, maybe less. And this time, they're bringing heavy weapons and vehicles. She looked at Jake directly, and for a moment, he saw something familiar in her face, something he couldn't quite place, but that triggered a distant memory. Sergeant Morrison, she said quietly, you're about to find out what it means to have a real guardian angel. Hashtag the Angel of Death. The 15 new militants arrived in 3 pickup trucks, their weapons mounted and ready for war. From the mosque rooftop, Jake Morrison watched through binoculars as they spread out in professional formation, their movement indicating serious military training. These weren't the same undisciplined fighters from earlier. These men knew what they were doing. They're different, Jake observed, passing the binoculars to Tom Chun. Look at how they move. Tom studied the approaching force and nodded grimly. Former military, probably special forces. This just got a lot worse. The mysterious sniper was lying prone at the roof's edge, her custom rifle aimed toward the approaching vehicles. She had been silent for several minutes, studying the enemy, through her scope with an intensity that made Jake uncomfortable. There was something almost predatory in her focus. 15 targets, moving in coordinated teams, she murmured, more to herself than to the SEALs. Vehicle-mounted weapons, body armor, and they know this terrain. Can you handle them? Danny Rodriguez asked, checking his own weapon's limited ammunition. She turned to look at him, and Jake caught another glimpse of that familiar something in her eyes. Iva Hendeldvers. Who are you? Jake demanded again. And don't give me another cryptic answer. My men deserve to know who they're trusting with their lives. The woman was quiet for a long moment, her finger resting lightly on her rifle's trigger. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight of memory that made Jake's chest tighten. Captain Elena Vasquez, former Army Rangers, former Delta Force, former everything that matters. She paused, adjusting her scope. 3 years ago, your unit pulled my convoy out of an ambush in Afghanistan. You probably don't remember. You save a lot of people. Jake's memory flickered. 3 years ago, Afghanistan, a burning convoy on a mountain road. He remembered pulling survivors from smoking vehicles, but the details were hazy among so many similar missions. The intelligence officer, he said suddenly, dark hair, wounded leg. You kept trying to go back for classified documents. That was me. Elena's smile was grim. You carried me to safety when I couldn't walk. Told me that no document was worth dying for. You said you owed me a favor. Jake remembered. I told you that soldiers don't owe each other favors. We just do our jobs. Well, today I'm doing mine. The approaching militants had reached the village's outer buildings. Through his binoculars, Jake could see their leader, a tall man with military bearing who was coordinating their advance with hand signals. These weren't random terrorists, they were professionals. They're setting up a perimeter, Tom reported. Classic search and destroy pattern. They'll have us surrounded in 10 minutes. Elena chambered around and settled into her firing position. Not if I have anything to say about it. 15 targets, Rick Palmer reminded her nervously. Even if you don't miss, can you get them all before they locate us? Elena's smile was cold as winter steel. Watch and learn. The first shot came so suddenly that Jake barely heard the rifles crack before the lead militant dropped. The man had been pointing toward the mosque, giving orders to his team, when Elena's bullet found him from over 600 meters away. But instead of scattering like the earlier group had done, these militants reacted with military precision. They immediately took cover and began laying down suppressive fire toward the mosque, their weapons chattering in coordinated bursts. They know where we are, Danny shouted over the gunfire. Doesn't matter, Elena replied calmly, working the bolt of her rifle. Her second shot took down the machine gunner on the nearest pickup truck. The heavy weapon fell silent, but another militant immediately moved to take his place. Elena's third shot dropped him before he could reach the gun. She's picking them off systematically, Tom observed with professional admiration. But they're adapting fast. The militants were indeed learning. They had identified the mosque as the sniper's position and were concentrating their fire while advancing undercover. Their remaining vehicles were moving to flank the building, forcing Elena to divide her attention. They're trying to get around us, Jake warned. I see them. Elena's rifle swung smoothly to track a group of militants attempting to circle the mosque's north side. 4 quick shots eliminated the entire flanking team with mechanical precision. But the distraction had cost her. The remaining militants used the opportunity to advance closer, and now they were near enough to use grenades effectively. The first explosive detonated against the mosque's western wall, sending chunks of ancient stone flying across the rooftop. They're going to bring this building down on us, Rick shouted. Elena was already moving, transitioning to a new firing position as grenades exploded around them. Her movements were fluid and efficient, never wasting motion or exposing herself unnecessarily. She fired twice more, eliminating the grenadiers before they could launch additional rounds. 7 down, 8 to go, she announced, reloading with movements so practiced they looked automatic. The remaining militants were getting desperate. Their professional coordination was breaking down as Elena systematically eliminated their key personnel. Jake watched as they huddled behind their remaining vehicles, trying to coordinate a final assault. "They're going to rush us," he predicted, "all at once, from multiple directions." "Let them come," Elena said grimly. The final assault began with a roar of engines as the two remaining pickup trucks charged toward the mosque from opposite directions. The militants on foot followed behind, using the vehicles as mobile cover while firing continuously at the rooftop. Elena's rifle spoke in a steady rhythm now, each shot carefully calculated to maximum effect. She took down the driver of the first truck, sending it careening into a pile of rubble. The gunner on the second vehicle fell to her next shot, leaving the weapon unmanned. 3 left, Tom counted, watching through his own scope. The remaining militants had reached the mosque base and were attempting to breach the entrance. Elena shifted position again, angling for a shot through the building's damaged windows. Her rifle cracked twice more, and the sounds of movement from below fell silent. "One more," she whispered, scanning the area for the final target. The last militant appeared at the mosque's rear entrance, trying to climb to the roof through an exterior stairway. Elena's final shot was the longest of the engagement, nearly 300 meters at an extreme downward angle. The bullet found its mark with the same deadly precision as all the others. Silence settled over the village like a blanket. Elena remained in position for several minutes, scanning for any movement, any sign of additional threats. When she was satisfied that all hostiles had been eliminated, she finally lowered her weapon. 25 confirmed kills, she announced matter-of-factly. "Area secure." Jake stared at her in amazement. In less than 2 hours, this woman had single-handedly eliminated an entire enemy force that should have overwhelmed them completely. Her performance went beyond exceptional skill. It was something almost supernatural. "Ow," was all he could manage to ask. Elena began disassembling her rifle with the same methodical precision she had shown in combat. 3 years of very specialized training after I left the military. There are people who pay very well for this particular skill set. "You're a mercenary," Tom realized. "I prefer independent contractor," Elena corrected. "And before you ask, this one was pro bono. I told you I owed a favor." In the distance, they could hear the distinctive sound of approaching helicopters. Elena smiled as she packed her gear into a compact case that seemed far too small to hold everything. "Your ride's here," she announced. "Right on time." "How did you know extraction was coming?" Jake asked. "Because I called in an hour ago, along with your location and the all-clear signal." Elena shouldered her gear and moved toward the roof's edge. "Consider it part of the service." "Wait," Jake called as she prepared to leave. "Where are you going? Don't you need extraction too?" Elena paused at the edge of the roof, her silhouette outlined against the desert sky. For a moment, she looked less like a deadly sniper and more like the wounded intelligence officer he had rescued 3 years earlier. "I have my own transportation," she said simply, "and other places to be." "Will we see you again?" Rick asked. Elena's smile was enigmatic. "Probably not. But you never know when you might need a guardian angel." She rappelled down the mosque's exterior wall with equipment that had appeared from nowhere and disappeared into the maze of village buildings. By the time the rescue helicopters landed 5 minutes later, Elena Vasquez was gone as completely as if she had never existed. The extraction team found 4 very grateful SEALs and 25 dead militants scattered throughout the village. When Jake tried to explain about the mysterious sniper who had saved them, the rescue team leader looked puzzled. "Negative on any other friendly forces in this area," the officer reported. "You guys must have had some serious backup to take down this many hostiles." Jake exchanged glances with his team. They all knew what they had witnessed, but explaining it would be impossible. Elena Vasquez had appeared like a ghost, eliminated an overwhelming enemy force with surgical precision, and vanished without a trace. As their helicopter lifted off from the desert village, Jake looked down at the scattered buildings where the impossible had occurred. Somewhere down there, A guardian angel had kept her promise to repay a favor. He hoped that someday, somehow, he might have a chance to return it. The desert wind carried death that morning. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison pressed his face against the sand, feeling the heat burn through his tactical vest. Around him, his four-man SEAL team lay scattered behind broken concrete walls, their breathing heavy and desperate. What was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission had turned into a nightmare. "Control, this is Bravo Team," Jake whispered into his radio, his voice barely audible over the distant sound of boots on gravel. "We need immediate extraction. Repeat, immediate extraction." The crackling response sent ice through his veins. "Bravo Team, all extraction birds are engaged. You're on your own for the next 6 hours." 6 hours. Jake's mind raced as he counted the enemies surrounding their position. 25 armed militants had them pinned down in what used to be a small village school. The irony wasn't lost on him. They were trapped in a place where children once learned about hope and future dreams. Petty Officer Tom Chun crawled closer, blood seeping from a gash on his forehead. "Sarge, we've got maybe 2 magazines each. They've got us surrounded on 3 sides, and there's nowhere to run." Jake nodded grimly. The mission had started simple enough. Intelligence reports suggested a high-value target was meeting contacts in this abandoned village, 12 miles from the Syrian border. Their job was to observe and report. Nothing more. But intelligence was wrong, dead wrong. Instead of finding one target, they had stumbled into a massive weapons cache operation. Trucks filled with ammunition, rocket launchers, and enough firepower to level a city block were being loaded and prepared for transport. When Jake's team tried to withdraw and report their findings, they had been spotted. The chase began at dawn. 25 heavily armed militants pursued them through the rocky terrain, forcing the SEALs to take shelter in the village. Now, with the sun climbing higher and their ammunition running dangerously low, the situation looked hopeless. "Movement on the east side," whispered corpsman Danny Rodriguez, peering through a crack in the wall. "They're setting up something big." Jake carefully lifted his head to look. His stomach dropped. The militants were positioning a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, aiming it directly at their building. One shot from that weapon would turn their concrete shelter into a tomb. "Control, this is Bravo Team." Jay tried the radio again. "We have 25 hostiles with heavy weapons. We need backup now, or you'll be recovering bodies instead of soldiers." The radio remained silent except for static. Seaman Rick Palmer, the youngest member of their team, looked terrified. At 19, this was his first real combat mission. "Sarge, what do we do?" Jake wanted to give him hope, but the mathematics of survival were brutal. For men with limited ammunition against 25 well-armed enemies. No air support. No backup. No way out. "We do what SEALs do," Jake said quietly. "We fight until we can't fight anymore." The first RPG round hit the building's eastern wall, sending chunks of concrete flying like deadly missiles. The explosion rang in their ears, and dust filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Through the smoke, they could hear the militants shouting orders in Arabic, coordinating their final assault. "They're coming from all directions," Tom observed, checking his rifle's ammunition. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they overrun us." Jake closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about his wife Sarah and their 2 young daughters back in Virginia. He thought about the promise he had made to come home safely. It looked like that was a promise he wouldn't be able to keep. "Bravo Team, can you hear me?" The radio crackled with a different voice, clearer, calmer. "This is Bravo Team Leader." "Who is this?" "Someone who's been watching your situation. Stay low and prepare for immediate support. Help is closer than you think." Jake frowned. The voice was unfamiliar, and something about it was different. It sounded almost feminine, but that was impossible. There were no other American units in this area, and certainly no female operatives. "Unknown caller. Identify yourself. What's your position?" "Just keep your heads down, Sergeant Morrison. The cavalry is already here." How did this person know his name? Jake's confusion grew, but before he could ask more questions, the radio went silent again. Around them, the militants were getting closer, He could hear their footsteps, their excited chatter as they prepared to storm the building. Danny suddenly grabbed Jake's arm. "Do you hear that?" At first, Jake heard nothing unusual. Then it hit him. The militants had gone quiet. Their chatter had stopped. Even their footsteps seemed hesitant now. "Something's wrong," Tom whispered. "They're spooked about something." Through a crack in the western wall, Jake could see several militants looking around nervously, their weapons raised but uncertain where to aim. Their leader, a tall man with a distinctive scar across his cheek, was speaking rapidly into a radio, his voice carrying a note of concern. Then the first shot rang out. It came from somewhere high and distant, the distinctive crack of a sniper rifle. One of the militants near the RPG launcher dropped instantly, a clean headshot that sent his companions diving for cover. "What the hell?" Rick gasped. Another shot, another militant down. This time, the man operating the RPG launcher himself. The shot was so precise, so perfectly timed, that it disabled their most dangerous weapon in seconds. "Unknown sniper, this is Bravo team leader," Jake called into his radio. "Identify yourself immediately. Stay down, Sergeant. This is going to get interesting." The voice was definitely female, calm, and professional despite the chaos erupting around them. Jake had never heard of any female snipers operating in this region, but whoever she was saving their lives. The militants were now in complete disarray. Their leader was shouting orders, trying to locate the sniper's position, but the shots seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Each bullet found its target with surgical precision. Never a miss, never a wasted shot. Shot after shot echoed across the village. Each one meant another enemy down, another step closer to survival for Jake's team. But who was this mysterious shooter, and how'd she appeared exactly when they needed her most? As the morning sun climbed higher and the gunfire continued, Jake realized this was just the beginning of the most extraordinary rescue mission he had ever witnessed.